problem people have is not being honest with themselves. You've seen budgeting apps. You know how to use a spreadsheet. You've watched financial advice videos. The fact that you don't budget is not laziness. It's identity avoidance. I know what you do. You hide from downloading your bank statements. When you open up your online banking, you're keeping one eye shut, barely wanting to look at the screen. You don't want to check your balance. I know you do that because I've been there too. Because once you see it in black and white, it becomes real. And we don't like that reality. It doesn't just show your finances, it shows your behaviour. The truth is, budgeting is confronting because it reveals the gap between who you think you are and how you behave. You might like to think that you're good with your money, good at saving, financially smart, that you don't spend impulsively. But then when you look at your bank statements, it says otherwise. And that's the reality. And you don't like it. And you don't want to face it. The gap between identity and behaviour is uncomfortable. So what I recommend you do is just accept the reality and go through a review stage of your last few bank statements. Okay? Don't go line for line. I'm not expecting you to do that. Just focus on the big categories. Your big expense categories. So those would be your living expenses, which would cover everything. It could be your car expenses or food, like groceries. It doesn't have to be, bang on. Just like a ballpark figure, what you usually spend on groceries. Anything, just living expenses that, you would spend to survive every month. The next category would be your memberships and subscriptions, which come out on a direct debit every month. So it doesn't matter what you do with your money, that will always come out your bank account. And the third thing being your debt payments, which you make every month without fail, like a mortgage or any other debts that you have. Once you've worked out all three of those, forget about everything else. All the guilt-free spending, or maybe you've put some money towards a holiday in the summer. Ignore all that. Focus on those three. And you can call that your survival expenses, should we say. Okay? Now, what you can do with that figure is you can start working on an emergency fund. The purpose of an emergency fund is pretty self-explanatory. It's a pot of money saved for if something bad happened. And they say the emergency fund should be in the value of 3 to 6 months of your survival expenses. So once you've worked that out, times it by 3 or times it by 6. And that's the amount you should have in your emergency fund. And that will act as, a real backbone to your wealth and your finances, because you've got something that can support you financially if, touch wood, that you lose a job. But you've still got that, lifeline almost. So once you've worked out that figure, you can then put in a plan. How long do you want to spend to build up to this emergency fund. Maybe it's 12 months, maybe it's 6 months. So you get that figure and you divide it by how many months you want to plan towards building that pot up. Once you've got that locked down, you can then start thinking about, removing high interest debts, or investing your money, or maybe adding more towards your sinking fund or something like that. But I think once you've got your emergency fund sorted out, that should relieve a lot of stress, to be honest. And the thing is, it's not hard, the process of, working out what your survival expenses are. But like I said, it's being able to just face the facts. And it's so common for people to just not do this, because budgeting forces honesty and accountability. Okay? You can't just blame inflation or the economy forever. There's got to be a point when you start to look at yourself and your bank statements and realise that there's more to it than that. You can't keep using the economy as a scapegoat. Okay? And the thing about budgeting is, it's not about control. It's about awareness. Because once you see your behaviour, you can then change it. You can't improve what you refuse to look at. So, work out your big three expenses, your big three expense categories. Then total up your survival expenses. And then work out the value of your emergency fund and put in a plan towards building that up. Once you've done that, that's a massive step forward. And then you can start thinking about building your wealth on the income side. You need to become someone that respects your future self, because in 5 years' time, you'll either be glad you started today, or you'll be trying to explain why you didn't. Time's ticking.